What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel and to another 3D model. This week we're going to be making a World War II blasting machine. So without further ado, let's just get started. For some reason I felt like making a realistic prop for this week's video. So while looking around online, I came across a random video of the movie Saving Private Ryan. And that was one of my favorite war movies growing up and really got me in the World War II theme. So I started doing some searching online and I came across this image of a World War II demolition blasting machine. And while clicking on this link, it ended up leading me to this website, World War Collectibles. For some reason, I really liked this image. It looked really beaten up and weathered and used, really old antique World War device. And I thought this would be a lot of fun to recreate for this week's video. And luckily on this website, it came with a few different images from a few different angles, which would really help us put this thing together. So what I decided to do to save a little bit of time was save this first image. That way I can import it as an image plane so we can roughly kind of block out our main shapes so we don't have to guess too much when it comes to proportions. Other than that, we're gonna kind of just wing through this thing and see what we can come up with. So like I said, I saved out that image, jumped into Maya, and imported it as an image plane to my front camera view. That way we can start just simply blocking out all those main shapes. Now the whole goal for this was to more or less just create a realistic looking prop. I didn't want to worry too much about topology or creating something that was optimized for a video game engine. This week was just about having fun. So that's what we're gonna do. We're not gonna stress too much about other stuff, and we're hopefully gonna get through this thing fairly quickly. Now, I'm not gonna lie, it was a little bit tricky trying to figure out how thick this thing was. Of course, I had some cool reference photos to work from, but I was only really using one image plane that was showing me a front camera view. And now, of course, this isn't completely orthographic or anything, so I can't stress too much about getting it perfectly sized to this image. This was more or less just gonna help me figure out those main shapes. And when it came to that side thickness, I was kind of struggling a little bit, so we end up coming back and reworking things a tiny bit, just kind of changing the shape as we go. And the more we add more objects to it, the more it'll help us visualize how this thing's supposed to look. Now don't get me wrong, we could have done a little bit more digging online for dimensions or different schematic images to use, which would be a lot more accurate. So if you're trying to find something that's really truly accurate to its true size, I would look for a better reference photo. But in this video, we're not gonna stress too much about that, and we're just gonna more or less use this as a general guide. Now don't forget you can find this full video in real time along with all the working files like the FBX model or the Substance Painter working file, and you can find it all on my Patreon page, and I'll put a link to it in the description below. So please go check it out if you're interested, and it's also the best way to help support this channel. So if you like to see these videos and you want to see more videos like it, please consider subscribing and please go check out my Patreon. Now another thing I noticed while looking online at different references is that there's a lot of different shapes when it comes to this specific device. They aren't actually very similar, and a lot of them have different components on them. So I didn't want to stress too much about following this specific one from the reference we're using, and I also liked a few different ideas from different blasting devices. So for example, this other image here, it showed a nice linked chain. So I kind of wanted to incorporate that into my model. And I also liked a few different materials on a few other devices I found on Google. So like I said, I wasn't stressing too much about getting it perfectly similar to the reference. I was more or less going to gather a few ideas from other references as well and kind of create my own. And another thing I really like about models like this is that you can kind of create some story. It's a lot easier, in my opinion, to create a backstory or to add specific grunge and dirt to devices like this rather than, let's say, a sci-fi device. Something like a World War II antique has a lot of history in it, and you can really think about where it's from, how it's used, who used it. It can help you really think about where you're gonna add different roughness or dirt and grunge or different specific materials to help make this model feel realistic and alive. And that's where I personally struggle with when it comes to sci-fi objects or things that are a little bit more make-believe, because it's hard to think of a really in-depth background history, and a lot of that you can incorporate into the materials and how the model looks. And that's why I like creating stuff from the World War II era, because it comes with a lot of history and it's a lot of fun kind of trying to incorporate that into the model. So enough of me talking, let's continue blocking this thing out and let's slowly piece together this demolition blasting machine. Alright, so here is the blasting device in its finished form. And everything's basically the exact same. The only thing I really did was just go through and make sure that some of these objects weren't completely straight. So for example, the handle was just, of course, nice and straight how we modeled it, but if you look a lot of the reference online, they're kind of angled, they've been beaten up and used through war, so nothing's gonna be perfect. So I just basically took this and just slightly rotated it so it's not perfect. Also messed around with some of these chain links a little bit more just to make it not so perfectly straight. And same with the leather strap. I feel like we could have added a bit more variation in the shape on this strap, but they did look a bit stiff online, so it's kind of battling between how I wanted it to look. But this is how it ended up looking in the end. So what I decided to do was really only add one texture to this whole prop. I feel like we don't need more texture sets. I think, like, of course you could add more just to get a bit more resolution out of those materials, but we're not gonna do anything too crazy. We're not gonna have insane close-up renders or anything like that. So I wasn't stressing too much, and I thought one texture would be fitting for a prop like this. So let's quickly open up that UV editor and I'll show you exactly how I pieced these UVs together. So of course, as you can see, the main goal is to really fill up this 0 to 1 space as much as possible. You don't really want to waste unnecessary real estate, as I like to say, because the bigger you can make these UV shells, the more resolution, more detail you're going to have in those textures. So of course, the largest ones like this bottom piece, this whole UV shell here, is the main kind of bottom canister or metal part of my demolition machine. So I wanted this one to be quite large. Now I could have automatically laid out these, which, for example, if I do here, you'll see that it changes the shape and ends up with a lot of unnecessary wasted space up here because it's trying to make the textile density equal to all of my pieces. Now I did that for most of them. But what I decided to do is take specific UV shells where I wanted more detail and just enlarge them a little bit so I can have more resolution in them in the end. And it would also help me kind of fill up all of that unnecessary space you saw. So for example, this front label, well, I wanted to have text and I wanted to have some bump in that text so it looks like it's like a stamped on metal nameplate or something. And if this was really small, how it was previously, so for example, if I lay this out again, and I find this tiny one, it's a lot smaller here. And if I added that small printing, well, it would be a little bit pixelated and it wouldn't have as much nice detail in that text. So by enlarging it just a little bit larger, nothing too crazy, I can get more resolution in that final material. So I did that with some other ones. For example, this side strip here, I'd made sure I had 2 cuts on the top and the bottom so I can easily add a kind of like a bump pattern to this in Substance Painter. So trying to think ahead and plan ahead will really help the texturing process later on when we jump into Substance. That way I don't have to try to add that specific detail along a certain edge. Well, if I make those cuts ahead of time, I can just apply to a UV fill and quickly move on to another one. Now another thing, all of these chain links were basically sharing the same UV space. I ended up splitting them into 2 different ones. That way you couldn't see too much of a repeating pattern. I also went through and just kind of rotated some of these links around and did like a 180 kind of flip. That way, once again, you wouldn't see like a mark here repeating on every single link. Just to add a little bit more variation. We're not gonna get too close, so I wasn't too stressed about it, but it is something that I went through just to hopefully make it look more realistic. So what we're gonna do next is just add a material to this device so we can have one texture set in Substance Painter. We can export this thing and we can jump over and start the texturing. And don't forget, if you wanna see the full UV mapping process, that will be part of the real-time video, which will be uploaded to my Patreon page, and you can find it in the link in the description below. All right, let's go ahead and start the texturing. All right, so now jumping over to Substance Painter, we can go ahead and load in that FBX file from Maya. And then we can, of course, go ahead and bake out those textures. Now, when it comes to those textures, we're going to use that main reference from that website we found online as our main inspiration. So when it comes to what materials to use and what colors to use, I'm more or less going to take the ideas from this prop and incorporate it into my model. Now, I'm not going to be too torn on making it exactly like it. I find if you're trying to replicate things, it takes, of course, a lot more time because you just need to keep going back and forth between materials to just adjust different settings, just to try to mimic whatever material you're trying to recreate. And, you know, if we're trying to really make it exactly like something, it just takes more time and you have to invest more time into it. So to make this thing a little bit quicker, we're not going to stress too much about recreating those materials exactly. And if we come across something we think looks interesting, we're just going to go ahead with it. So let's just kind of more or less see what we can come up with. Now, I decided to do things a little bit different for this video. Rather than just use the built-in materials that come with Substance, I decided to use a few from the websites that Substance Painter gives you. So for example, there's an Adobe Substance Painter Assets website where you can just download materials that Adobe gives you that you can incorporate into your models. And there's also a community website that basically different people come up with to create different materials, and it's given away for free so you can use and incorporate them into your projects. So I thought it'd be fun to use a few of these materials on these websites and just incorporate them into our asset. So I found 3 in particular that I liked and I thought would be fun to incorporate. So 2 of them are from the Adobe Materials website, and those were the burnished metal, which I use for the front nameplate, and I also use a painted wood varnish for the top handle. Now, of course, you don't have to use these materials. You can use the ones that Substance come with the software, and you can just more or less build those up yourself to look however you want them to look. But the Substance website has tons of free materials that you can use, and just such a wide selection, you can really kind of come up with whatever you want. So we're going to use these 2, and I also used one from the community website, which was called a painted military metal. Big shout out to Stefan. Now I'll put links to all of these websites in the description below if you're interested in looking for different materials yourself to use in your own projects. But these 3 I thought would be a lot of fun to use in this model, and it will also help us speed this thing up so we don't have to really build everything from scratch. Other than these 3 materials, everything else is going to be from Substance. So what we're going to do is just start filling in these empty meshes with some sort of material, and then we can slowly start adjusting things and building these things up to look however we want them to look. So of course, this is from World War II, so it's going to look very beaten up and used. And I'm going to use a lot of fill layers with different smart masks and different black masks just to add more dirt and grunge and slowly build up some sort of story behind this device. So for example, the bottom, I'm gonna make it look a little bit like metal, like worn out metal, like it's been put down a lot and it's chipping away at that paint. And the top handle, I want it to look kind of like a reference photo where it's really worn out, the paint's kind of worn out and you can see the bare wood below it. And there's a lot of rust and different scratches because it's just been used and beaten up through the history and through the years it's been used. And I always think it's a good idea, if you can, to personalize it a little bit by adding some sort of marking, some sort of story. So I thought it'd be fun to add a little sticker on the back as some sort of like barcode that you basically wrote on with marker. And I thought it'd be fun to add some sort of writing on it, like a Polyrendr date from the person that was using it, being Polyrendr myself. And then I thought it'd be fun to also add a little engraving, like you kind of scratched your initials into the front of it or something like that. So just adding some sort of history, kind of let the viewer come up with its own idea of what these are, but having something there that's different and kind of stands out will really just help it look a lot more interesting and kind of create some story behind it. Now there's so many different things we could have done with this, like different markings and different stickers, maybe scratched off stickers that used to be applied to it, which looking back now I think would have been a really good idea. But you can spend days just kind of coming up with some stories and slowly building it up. So my advice would be, don't rush through it too much, slowly build up those materials and you can come up with something that looks really cool and realistic. Especially when it comes to all that dirt and grunge, I find one of the best things an artist can do to help make props look real is really subtly build up those materials. Don't really add one dirt and grunge and go crazy like it's been tossed into a sand pit or it's just covered with the exact same material or the exact same grunge. You really want to have variation through how the grunge looks on the handle compared to the metal on the little knobs or the bottom main case or the leather strap. All of those materials are going to look different. All those dirt values are going to look different when they're on different materials. So just try to think about that when you're modeling and you're applying different materials to all these pieces. Add some variation, some different roughness values can really go a long way. So enough of me talking and dragging this thing on. Let's slowly texture this thing and we can piece together this demolition device. Don't forget you can find the full texturing process on my Patreon page, which I will link in the description below. right, and that's basically everything. That's a full 3D modeling, UV mapping, and texturing process that I did to create this World War II demolition machine. I really hope you guys enjoyed this week's video, and if you did, please consider subscribing to the channel, and please go check out my Patreon page, where you can find this full video in real time, along with all the working files, along with all the other models I've created on this channel. It's all available through my Patreon page, so please go check that out, and let me know what you thought about this week's video. All right, hope you guys have a great week, and I will catch you all in the next one.